Mike Dwyer works with Emplana Career Services to help countless individuals transitioning in their next career phase, especially those who have navigated decades of change in the workforce and now seek renewed purpose. He understands firsthand what it means to have made years of sacrifices only to find the landscape shifting beneath your feet. And he's passionate about sharing practical strategies to harness prior experience for new opportunities. Mike is deeply involved in building mentorship connections, helping people tap into their authentic network and resources when planning their next steps. His programs are shaped by real conversations with professionals in the thick of transition, giving him a holistic view of the current challenges and possibilities for you. What's up, my financially intentional people? I am thrilled to be joined today by Mike Dwyer, and we're going to talk about careers and transitions and like all those looming things that we see in the headlines around where our workforce is going. So super excited to bring Mike on because he has some very unique insight and some skills that we could all be learning and things we can all be doing to navigate these changing times. So welcome, Mike. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Nasima.
Of course. So, Mike, let's talk about like how you got into this space, this career space. I know it's not your main thing, but something that you've been doing for some time.
It is my passion project.
Yes.
And I'm lucky enough to have a consulting practice, a day job, if you will, that is mostly just me, but it's well established. I have just hired an intern. I'll be hiring a grad student. So it's an interesting thing. It's very steady. And it lets me keep up. I'm doing cloud computing, cybersecurity, a little bit of AI. So for an old guy, basically I do some advisory work for seniors. And the way I look at it is I never left. So it's not that I've done anything extraordinary. I just continued to show up. But I also offer that the way I'm doing things with this incremental sidelines, this work I love, that's one of the structures you can do. If you're lucky enough to have a job, then the younger generation calls it income stacking. I don't trust anything anymore. And I'm going to have a freelance and the dog walking business and my creative graphics. And wow, you won't stop me. And I love that attitude. And as we were talking before, we have to recognize that it's a dire time. Do you want to share some of those statistics you mentioned before?
Sure. So I was looking up some statistics because, of course, across my timeline is the amount of Black women that have exited the labor force in the last couple of months. And the most alarming statistic to me was that there are 300 Black women that have lost their jobs recently. And just in April of this year, 2025, Black women have lost over 106,000 jobs. And then Black people make up about 12% of the federal workforce. And we know what's going on with the government and the federal workforce. So just these alarming numbers is like really, really disturbing.
And I'm doing a quick flash here of some headlines that I put together. And the purpose of showing this is to be realistic and not to get dispirited, to get determined. Let's not kid ourselves that just throwing a cover letter in and a good resume is going to guarantee you something these days. It probably won't. But faced with this array of, these are Wall Street Journal, Economist, these are mainstream press reports. And we don't need to dwell on this too long. Impression made. You're talking about some great personal demographics. I'm talking about across the board. We got to roll up our sleeves here, don't we?
Yes. It's scary. It's scary. And I look at it like I'm a nurse, but I'm positioning myself to not be working forever. But I'm thinking about what is a workforce going to look like for my kids as well. But in the present moment, we just are having some real issues when it comes to people finding and keeping stable income.
Absolutely. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. The name you have intentional in the name of what you do. And I overlap with you on that word 100%. If you just wait, I'll see if I get a promotion. I don't think my company's going to lay off. That's not the right strategy. You want to be doing things on the personal front and the community front. With your permission, I'll talk a little bit more about those two dynamics, personal and community.
I would love to hear about it.
Thank you. First of all, when I work with people, I try and organize things into a 5-day time box. Short, and if you're really an organized, high-speed person, it could be 5 hours. If you are full-time work and doing this at night, maybe it's 5 weeks. But what I want you to do is start on the beginning, the first time box, the first day. Look back at your career. Look at old emails, look through files, look at project notes. And what are you looking for? You know that human sound we make? When we say, that's intriguing. Wait a minute, that could be something. We're looking for the fact that you actually did a little bit of work in a tax office, or you did some event planning. You're looking for things that are nuggets that you could say, and you're looking for things to follow up, people, companies you wanted to track. So this creates, and first of all, I'd say under the heading of mental health, when you're doing concrete steps and you have a game plan. All right, today I'm going to look through this stuff. Then tomorrow I'm going to start organizing it into what's my strengths and weaknesses. Do I need to brush up on my tech? Today you got to know how to use collaboration tools. In the work I do, I have to be able to find my way around Slack, Teams, GoToMeeting, Google Meet. But you don't need all that, but you certainly need to be at home in at least one of them, where you can say to yourself, oh, I know how to add a document to this environment for others to review. I know how to respond off hours to something that came through. So we want to take a look. So day one is we looking back for some nuggets. Day two is we're starting to assess what we have. And then the fun part comes. We start thinking about our community. And as we were talking before, the idea of putting that personal board together, somebody who knows a lot about your sector, somebody who knows you. I was working with somebody who's a little bit fiery, who I really admire though, but they come out at you. And this person I was talking about, personal board, and she said, yeah, you know what? One of them might even not know what you do, but they're going to be strong enough with you to say, that's too timid, or that's a reach for you. You need that feedback. And so if you picture work that says, I'm reflecting on what I've done, I'm assessing what I need in the way of business, sector, and technology skills, I'm thinking about a community. So I want to stop for a minute and do a check-in with you, because now I want to switch to external and outside world. So far, so good?
So far, excellent. And I just wanted to clarify that this is something that people can do whether they're in a career transition, whether they're in between jobs, or just every day. Every person can do this wherever they're at, right?
That is correct. Yeah. And you can, I think, an antidote to the fear. And we read these articles about people who've been looking for work for a long time. That's another statistic. I'm sure if it's not here, it's near in our thoughts that it's taken longer to find a job. So I want to do things that actually create, I'm not a hockey player, but I love their shots on goal concept. And the way they measure them is if you got 40 good shots on goal, right? You're close to the goal. It's a little further away, but it's a high-speed slap shot. If you're doing that, you're going to win. And that's what we want to do. So now in this dynamic I'm describing, we've got some reflection going on in our past. We're looking ahead a little bit now. We're thinking about who we want to organize into that personal board. How can I buy them some coffee or bagels or get them on a Zoom? And who would be in that group? That old professor you loved? I want to put something out to people. I have had amazing luck getting back in touch with people on LinkedIn after 20 years. If you know somebody pretty good, it's not that hard to pick up. And you start off with what you knew about them at the time that you admired. You get a catch up. And I've probably done that 4 or 5 times in the last few years. And every time it works. So let's go back to this personal board. That old professor, that person you thought had a lot of good ideas and advice at a couple of companies ago, maybe a neighbor, maybe the uncle who's got lots of business experience, however it works for you. And maybe one of the things, I love when people get real. If you are a gay black accountant in Oklahoma, you got some navigating to do in our society, I regret to say, right? So maybe some of your networking stuff is going to be around identity and navigation. If you're a 45-year-old financial services professional who's saying, wow, I made more money 10 years ago. It's competitive. I don't know this AI and tech stuff. Let's get you on Slack and get a friend and organize a golf tournament or a birthday party. I want people to go from what is that to my first impression when I used it is, and I hope you see the importance of that dynamic. From outside to experimentation a little bit. This is what I liked. This is what I need to learn some more. So again, I want to stop and check in. How are we doing? Because to me, this is how I operate. This is what I share with people. And I'm lucky because I don't need to twist people's arms to be an Emplana client. I got a day job and I got plenty to do, and I'm working with a university career office, and there's plenty going on.
Nice. No, I love this. Now, do you think that there needs to be a minimum amount of people like on this personal board? Should you aim to have at least 3 people? Should it be like that? Or how do you explain it?
You stole my, no, it's perfect. That's exactly right. 1 or 2 is too small. 3 or 4 is probably manageable.
Yes.
Now, you'll read in the business press about a personal board, but I believe, I've told you before in our chat that I've actually convened a group like that, and I don't see that too often. Now, harder to schedule, little personal risk, because if you do get everybody in a room with coffee or on a Zoom call, if you got somebody who knew you when you're in college or grad school and a neighbor and an uncle, there's not much unknown about you left, is there? You're putting yourself out there. And yet, my experience has been that those are the best conversations. They move around. They're utterly tailored to you. You certainly want somebody who knows a lot about the sector you're in or the sector you're interested in.
Mike, in my personal experience, and it's just from having this platform. So outside of nursing, just because of the people that I met, just like on podcasts and in other social circles, I have been exposed to opportunities just for myself, not even looking, that I didn't even know was possible. And so I love this board because there's so many ideas and there's so many realms of things that live outside our own personal echo chambers that we don't even know is out there. So I really love the idea of having this board to like generate ideas because, like you said, they know you, but also they're bringing in their own perspectives and experiences and communities and relationships and all of those things. And so I think that is super to have. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll have to assure your audience, you and I didn't plan that exchange.
No, not at all.
This is genuine alignment.
Yes.
And one of the things I caution people, there are a few techniques I want to share. One thing is, if you know a leading light in a sector and you want to ask for an informational interview, if you haven't done something like that before, don't spend your best card first. Go find someone who's more accessible, maybe not as prestigious or interesting, but could still be good, and somebody, because you don't want to take from people. You want to generally learn from each other. But if you need to ramp up on what's an informational interview like, or what's this personal board, give it a little bit of a dry run.
What would like typically somebody want to do an informational interview about?
What they want to know is what's the emerging skills? What do you see happening? And by the way, another technique I want to share with your listeners is avoid the big ask. If you say to somebody, get me a job, unless it's your brother.
Yeah.
Nasima, if I say to you, hey, what do you see in this sector? What should I be studying? What are things that are becoming obsolete, or what are things that are becoming intriguing or whatever? I think that's a flattering question, and I think it's a question that people can comfortably answer, and it's a small ask. You don't have to do a big commit to share your thoughts about what this person could be looking into or where the sector's going.
It's funny, I had somebody reach out to me on my personal finance platform, but with the nursing question. And what I get asked, like informational, is I'm a new grad. I want to get into labor and delivery. What are some things that I should do to get into specialty? And so in that, I think that's a great way to ask, okay, you should look into getting these certifications. You should look into what places actually offer new grad programs, or if there's no new grad programs, how in the hospital do you transition into it? Things like that. So I think like those kind of things are really, really great. Those kind of questions, I feel like it's not a big ask. Like people aren't like, hey, can you get me a job in labor and delivery since you've been a labor and delivery nurse? No, I'm not a hiring manager. I can't get you a job, but I can show you how to come prepared for a job and be an excellent candidate.
I love it. And we are so on the same page. It's a delight, Naseema. Yeah, and I think that, and what happens is, by the time you do a couple of those, you're getting a sense of a couple of different hospital systems. Everything from, I know you all, so many use that system, Epic. I told you my daughter's a nurse. Yet there's some others out there and some things. So you get a chance to talk about tech, tools, what institutions, what places. And another thing, too, is the person who put this together with me, Steve, who introduced you and I, Steve Dubin, he is a longtime professional networker. And he and I have actually delivered a professional networking seminar a couple of times.
Nice.
And one of the things he was heard to say recently, I was telling him, you might want to read, again, your word, intentional. If you can find that group, if you're interested in, if you don't know about data analytics and you've read a little and you want to know more, he finished my sentence. He said, you might drive 75 miles to go to that data analytics meetup. Exactly. And boy, is that intentional. As you and I talk through this, let's just add a little bit of a concept of a career budget to this. All right, you're a financial person. Steve Dubin and I argues. He's always saying, "Oh, you should be out there all the time." You know what I mean? And valid position, okay, I like it. But yours truly would say, you know what? As little as once every month or two, if you've got 8 or 10 things at the end of a year and 16 to 20 at the end of 2 years, that's life-changing. If you've gone to that data analytics, if you've gone to things that are at the intersection of a couple of your interests and heard from people or found some people like you, that is really powerful, and that is going to lead to other things. And again, it's all about shots on goal. For a guy who's not a hockey player, I'm just delighted at that concept, that we're really trying to come up with these great shots and really think about it and make sure that we're doing some effective things.
I love this conversation, Mike, because I know that for a lot of people that I deal with, when they think about making a career transition, they automatically just say, I need to go back to school and get another degree in this. What do you say to that?
That's not where to start. That's
100%.
One of the things that one of these things I flash by you, goodbye 165,000 tech jobs. Student coders seek work at Chipotle. We told them all, if the one thing you could do is if you learn how to code, you can't miss. Now it turns out AI is replacing entry-level jobs in financial services and technology and programming. So before you go charging off to get what seems like the right degree, you probably want to put together that strategy, that personal board. You want to be looking at, you want to understand your current tools. Remember I talked about beginning the dynamic with looking back, internal and personal reflection. Then you bring that to your community, you start some conversations going, and here comes the fun part. I've been really looking at gig economy demographics lately. And I told you before, I work with older people. Turns out 9% of the Upwork population is boomers. Now,
Wow.
isn't that a wonderful stat? Because, okay, it's
Yay.
not a majority, but you shouldn't feel lonely. What that says to the 60-year-old who's got that, I mentioned early, event planning or something else, you could do something with that. And it doesn't cost anything. And in fact, the same personal board, your community, one of the things you can do that's a small ask, can you give me a reference? Remember back 2 jobs ago, Nassima, when I helped you with that, could you give me some kind of little plug or quote? That's not too much to ask. And I hope, again, you're seeing where you're exploring now. You're starting to look outside. I spent yesterday looking through the 750 categories in Fiverr under programming. Now, I'm a nerd, man. I got a master's degree in management. I hang with accountants, actuaries, attorneys, and this just really gets me going. There's a lot of things you can offer. And I'll tell you, as a personal story, I have hired people off Upwork and put people on Fiverr. Don't hesitate to consider it. And you get in with your community, your personal board, get an idea going, get a reference from somebody, and put yourself out there at starting a modest rate. One of the things that's interesting about these platforms is that you'll see something offering, whether it's project management, ghostwriting, proofreading, you'll see from $10 an hour to $300 an hour. Obviously, you don't put out $300 an hour unless you have a pretty serious certification or whatever. But I think these are great things to all be looking and considering. Now, back to your question about the degree. I think the 2 major dynamics in career work are networking and skills development. But there are others. I had a guy come to me 10 or 15 years ago, and I've been knocking around technology since mainframe. And I got my cert I went to MIT Sloan for a night course, a short course on AI 6 years ago, just so I could have that cert and wave it around. So I'm good with all this. So I got a guy who comes to me a number of years ago, and he starts telling me about how he uses these old tools, report writers, Crystal Report. I can do mainframe access. And I'm saying, okay, there's a place for that. It's not hot, but we'll get you something. But then he goes on to say, oh, yeah, but I also love dashboards, Tableau, and all this. So one of the things that's interesting about this dynamic, this back and forth, Nassima, is that let me help him. Because you got a barbell story here. You're going back on the one hand to the mainframe, the 20-year-old retro stuff. Then on the other hand, you're telling me today, dashboards, Tableau. What we did is we looked out on the job boards and we found things about information analyst. That created an umbrella. His elevator pitch, because it had all these disparate parts, you would have needed a 90-story building to have his elevator pitch.
Oh, wow.
But once you put him under information analyst, it made sense. It's easy to talk about. And it also gave him some things he could study. So that's an example of a dynamic that shows light on what you want to study. Now, one last thought on picking some studies. There's a great resource out there. It used to be called Burning Glass. It's now called Lightcast. Now, you know how there's market research, there's the Bureau of Labor. Right now, the Bureau of Labor statistics is all too familiar from the headlines, right? We've got administrations replace the leadership. What Lightcast does is they have bots that have browsed 1 billion resumes. So their skills taxonomy, their concept of what's emerging is red hot. And they are, if you're familiar, a financial person that you are, KKR is rumored to have invested 500 mil in them. So they've got expertise. They've got bots and tech, and universities are using them. In fact, the Bureau, some of the feds are using them as part of these because they have such a snapshot. So one of the things you can do now is you can start looking around the world for whether it's the World Economic Forum. They have some wonderful 20-page brochures on what are emerging skills skills taxonomies that even a CEO, they got a skills taxonomy diagram. This is at the World Economic Forum, so it's legit, as my kids would say. And you can look over these things. And one of the things I think is really powerful that comes out of Lightcast, there's a couple of things I'll throw out for this conversation. The first thing they highlight is intersections. When the marketing person teaches themselves SQL, structured query language, they now no longer are beholden to an IT organization. They're more self-sufficient. They're more portable, right? We want to see that stuff. We want to see these intersections. Another thing that Lightcast taught me as a concept is the idea of a lifeboat job. Yesterday, I got a LinkedIn from Intuit saying, as a tax professional, we want to know how, I don't know how I've got some financial background. I went to grad school, but I'm not a tax preparer. But one of the things that Lightcast does is it talks about lifeboat jobs. Now, I'm in trouble. A tax preparer is something that doesn't take a graduate degree to get underway. And I think people use that personal board, their community, and their research to be looking for things that have a shorter on-ramp, but lead to some income. And I love that example of, it's a great concept. We have to be honest with ourselves. I need a lifeboat. Okay. Somebody actually come up with that concept who works on labor data. They actually have an example, and let's go find some more of those. That'd be some great work.
I was looking at Lightcast, that they have some amazing data.
Yes.
I'm just like personally like looking at it because I have friends that have platforms that they're building out to compare nursing salaries across the world. And I'm like, I'm going to put them onto that because they have some good information. But yeah, I think that a lot of people just don't understand what's out there and like truly how to pivot, when to pivot, and just how to do it as efficiently as possible. I have a friend that's a Salesforce administrator. He's a Salesforce consultant. And he was telling me Salesforce, obviously, I'm in the Bay Area, has the biggest tower in San Francisco, and most people don't even know what Salesforce is because it's been in the background of everything. So it's not a sexy job, but they have so many jobs within that ecosystem that you can access, and they train you for free. So they, like, Salesforce will train you to be a Salesforce administrator for free. Like, the minimum requirements are that you're like, I don't know, you don't even have to be 18, but you don't have to have a high school diploma. You don't have to have anything, but a lot of people can go through that and then start a new career in 6 months and be making out of your first year, like 75,000 to 100,000 in your second year. And I love talking about these things because they're not like those big, sexy things that everybody wants to be a content creator, YouTube creator, like all these things like now, right? That you take just a little bit of effort, a little bit of intentionality, training, those things that you already know. And there's different areas you can work in based off of what your skill set is. But just, I love that. I love this example. I love this resource that you have. But I just want to shed light on there's so many different things that do not take a lot of effort or a whole lot of student loans to transition into.
I love it. And in fact, I brought up the concept of a lifeboat. You brought up something, a ship I think I could stay on.
Yeah.
But I hope your listeners can hear what happens when you do active collaboration with people that have some knowledge about the sector, who care about these things and who work on them. It can make a big difference and it can have results.
Yeah, I think the biggest theme here is that there are so many things that you can focus on that are negative, and AI is taking all of our jobs, and we're facing massive layoffs and government shutdowns. There's so much noise out there. But if you pull in and look into what your skills are and who your network is, you will never run out of opportunities to make an income. And I always tell my kids this, and my kids are little, by the way, so it's two, you saw one, but I have 2 6 and 11-year-olds. And I always tell them, if you could solve a problem for someone, you will never run out of ways to make money.
I love that. An entrepreneur I admire very much has a professional services accounting firm with people all across the U.S., small, but impressive. She mentioned that recently at a conference, she heard there weren't soft skills, they're durable skills. And I love that because I think, like I gave the example before of when the marketeer learns structured query language, SQL. But I also think I've seen some great stuff on LinkedIn that says, hey, AI or tech, learn how to tell a story. And I think these conversations you and I having, these explorations, that's what leads you to something that says, that remember that sound I mentioned to you? The sound I want when I work people is, huh. Let me look at that. One of the things, as I'm such a nerd, a few years ago, I wasn't able to attend it, but I'm an associate member of IEEE, the Electrical Engineers. I'm not an electrical engineer. It costs me $200 a year. But you know what? If I want to know about something, I'm not getting a vendor white paper. I'm downloading first-class content. And I want to bring that to whoever you are, whether you're a people person, whether you're the front office at Salesforce or the back office. Know who you are. One of the things I'd say about today is whether it's additive printing, drones, what I mentioned about IEEE, I've attended some things on robotics that were stunning. Wow. But I wasn't able to go to the one on drones, but it was a 2-day thing up in Maine. What day one was, we're going to teach you how to build and fly a drone. And day 2 was regulations, FAA, and how to be like a responsible and confident droner. Now, back here in the home front, it turns out a few years ago, the wife bought me a pretty good drone, like just into the level where you could use it for a tool or something. And I just so busy, I let it get dusty for a couple of years. And I got really mad at myself. I went and watched some YouTubes and I got going. And it turns out it is really interesting. And as soon as I showed a friend a picture of my yard, my wife's hydrangeas, my friend at church said, could you take a picture of my next social gathering?
Yes.
And so for my most recent birthday, the wife got me 2 slim books. One is a book on drone photography. Make sure you have scale. Get a signpost or a human. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. But the other one were these drone business ideas that, whether you're painting parking lots. So depending where you're at, remember earlier on, I counted on you being a financial person and used the concept of portfolio. So if you're 25 years old, you want to be in equities and only a little bit in fixed assets, right? But if you're 65 years old, you don't want much market risk. That's how it is. Yeah. One of the things you can do in your career work is something similar. You can say, I'm going to chase that wonderful opportunity at Salesforce, but you know what? I want to have another horse in the game. I want to have another chip on the table. And I'm going to start exploring whether it's a craft business on Etsy. I was in one of these wonderful podcasts and they said, could you apply these same things to Etsy? I don't know anything about Etsy, but I'm sure you could network. You could figure out, you could get an informational interview. You could figure out what would be the thing you would offer. And all the stories you and I have told in the last minutes, what I think still make a lot of sense, even in this new neighborhood.
Yeah. I love that. Even why we're here, right? I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I had a problem with my finances. I sought to solve that problem. It turned into me creating this platform, which turned into me creating a podcast, and all of the things that I've learned in building a social media platform, marketing, all the stuff, running the back end of a business, building community, learning how to do a podcast, all of these things on top of all the other certifications and everything that I have and degrees that I have from being a nurse. All of these things are marketable skills that I've been asked to do, like a number of things for. I've been hired by fintech companies to build out their communities. And so like, I love these examples and I love like talking through these things and brainstorming because again, a lot of people get caught in like the negative news cycles and all these kind of things instead of having these conversations with each other so that we know what's out there and what's possible. Did you do your whole framework, Mike, or you got some more?
That's probably, I actually have a book that I'm revisiting. I think we touched on the really big moving parts, Naseema, and I really thank you for letting me share this with your audience. But what I really thank you for is jumping in with stuff so aligned, with content and thoughts so aligned that it looks like we rehearsed. Good job, you.
This was not planned. It's just when there's alignment. And I just think this is just a really timely conversation. And I just think it's really important for people to hear this and probably have to listen to it again, especially if you weren't ready to hear this. But it's what everybody needs to hear right now. I think this is so timely just because of all the negativity and all the crazy things that we hear in the news cycle and on social media and all of these kind of things. It just puts you back to where you're at right now, what you have going for you, and what you have to offer the world. And I think all of us have so many amazing things, but we just don't know how to tap into that. And I think you gave some really great examples of how to do that inwardly and through your network. And I think it's just really, really important to hear. So no, we did not rehearse this. No, I did not even know that is like how deep the conversation was going to go, but it just shows like how important this is. And I really just think I love the work that you're doing. And so I just want people to understand if they want to work with you, like what you offer, how you work with people.
Thank you. But it is my delight that there's no hard sell here. There's a submit form on emplanacareer.com. But I'm actually enjoying doing that. I mentioned before, I work with the university career office. I do job shadowing, mentoring. I do some informal, paid, unpaid. But I just love these conversations, Naseema, and you have fit in beautifully. I want to leave, I have this feeling we're getting to a natural closing point, and I want to offer you something that supports what you and I have been talking about. I did a marketing study about 10 years ago that I paid from my own pocket, actual Mike dollars. So I cared about it. And one of the things that came out of it was a top Boston marketing strategy firm. And I had them look at career. And they did some great work. And looking at the marketplace, segmentation, it really got me thoughtful about the age cohorts I work with, all those things. But they ran a couple of informal focus groups. And there was a result that came out of that I want to share with you and your listeners. Basically, what came up, it didn't come up in this order, but when we're said and done, when you wrote up the final, basically what a couple of different focus groups said was, when you want to get in shape, New Year's, you join the gym like everyone does. Yeah. Everybody expects to hire a trainer to get in shape. But somehow, when they're thinking about career and job, I need to be the Marlboro man. If I need to be the strong, silent type. And to me, that is absolutely backward. I want to do everything I can to say, don't do that. And all these great examples. And so I offer that as a context for all the great examples you and I have touched on, where working with others, let's say you say, look at all the opportunities you've got by just creating momentum, finding people, having a network. That's just a good move.
Yeah, I love that. And like, when people typically come to you, at what point are they at? Are they in their career trying to transition? Are they looking for jobs? Is it just like across the board? Who do you typically
across the board? And wow, one of the things I live at a co-working space with somebody in the Bay Area is going to understand. And I mean, there's 300 companies, and there's just an absolute array of nonprofits, for-profits, and stuff. So I get so many kinds of leads and conversation and a lot of that. Remember I mentioned about the marketing strategy firm? Both they and a really smart person in my circle had me take a look at age in people I work with. And here's what shaped up, Naseema. Turns out you get your first interest at about 10 years in, the 30-year-old. They got their feet under them. They're either feeling, okay, I've done this, I want to reach, or, I know the landscape now. I watch companies consolidate. Whether it's positive or negative, there's typically some interest around there. Then again, we see things in the 45 to 50-year-old where this is where a lot of times it's a bit negative. It's, wow, I'm not sure I'm keeping up. It's more competitive. I literally have had multiple people in financial services tell me I made more money 10 years ago. So we want to work on that. And then the other cohort that Steve and I have been really focusing on lately are the seniors. Mm-hmm. And I'm not above saying, don't be telling war stories. Come on, stay focused. You look at that reflection I described, finding those nuggets, use those and figure out how your job is to get a little community together to figure out how you can leverage that experience without just being a bunch of anecdotes and war stories. And back when I was doing it, no, that's not what's going to work. You need to take that and look out on those job boards. But that's why that 9% of Upwork being boomers is such a critical statistics. But I hope you're hearing that this is a take all comers. You're going to do it your own way with the right cohort for your age group and experience and sector. But make sure you put a little community together and make sure there's at least some exploration of something you don't now know about, whether it's the drones, the 3D printing, the things you discussed. I love those. Like you say, tell the people, go back and listen a second time, and you ticked off social media, this, that, and the other. Those are great things, and those can certainly lead to work.
Yes. Okay, so how can people work with you?
Very easy. Just go to emplanacareer.com and fill in the little submit, contact us, and one of us, me or a grad student, somebody to get back to you. But I hope the purpose of doing these podcasts is not that I'm trying to drive sales, but instead that it gives me a chance to work with someone like you and have this kind of a discussion where we're exploring, sharing, and supporting your listeners. And that to me is just so cool.
And I know my listeners will definitely appreciate this because, like I said, I think this is a very timely conversation to have.
So thank you. And by all means, get in touch. But I'd also say you might not need to. If you think through this, like you said, listen to it a second time and start putting some things in play, you might find the path shows up. But above all, the beauty of intentional is momentum. You're not just taking it about the head and shoulders. You're saying, this is what I'm going for. And that, to me, is healthy. And remember, the thing is, will it result in a shot on goal? That's how we know.
Right. Exactly. I love that analogy. I've never heard it before, but I'm definitely going to start using that. It's not about hitting the target. It's really about all those shots that you take. And I like to say it's the aggregation of marginal gains, those little things that you do every day that really make a difference.
That is a beautiful expression. We're going to share expressions with each other, Naseema.
Yes. I love it.
If I can throw one last Mike Dwyerism at you, this is one I made up on my own. Do you know why meetings are like microwave popcorn?
Why?
First it goes pop, pop, pop. Then it goes quiet a little bit, and then you burn it. And so you want to know when it's kind of popped most of the kernels and done what you're trying to do, and then maybe it's time to move to adjourn. What do you say?
I love it. We're not burning the popcorn here, though, Mike. I think we're still hot. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for such a great conversation and for sharing your world and your audience with me.
I really appreciate you.